fellow just came up this way, you passed the beer garden.
Yeah.
And that's an old place that's over 100 and some years old.
Yeah.
And he used to come up with his team of horses and bring up the kegs of beer and the bottles of beer, and in fact, I could get a bottle of it from down at the tavern, but I have pieces of it saying William J. McDermott owned that, you know, and it's still McDermott's, but they call it Bottlers. That's been in business for 100 and some years.
Huh.
And also, Will would get supplies from the railroad station, was just directly across from the beer garden, and he'd bring that up to. I have a picture of the railroad station.
Oh, I remember the railroad station.
In German here?
Yeah, I used to ride the D&H from Carbondale to Scranton. Yeah.
I never rode a train except once, I think, with my mom.
I went to the Army that way.
Oh, yeah?
Well, Will Hosey, he was a drayman, was he?
Right.
And he brought the. Where was he? Was he German or maybe?
He was located at the underpass here at right there by Bottlers, just right over the track.
When we came down, we made at the T. We made the left to come up this way. If we made a right down there.
He had a mule barn there, and he kept his horses there, and he did a lot of work for the people in German here on this side of town.
One of his horses died right there on the track?
One of the horses, I understand, from a person by Joe Zaroka, that he was coming from school at an early age, and one of the horses dropped dead on the O&W railroad track.
On the O&W?
That was the one that ran
Yeah.
at the river, Lackawanna River, at the bridge.
Well, this was, the station down here was the D&H station.
That's right.
Yeah. That was the German station.
Mm-hmm.
Well then, where did the people get their groceries from? Did they have to come to town, walk to town to get them, or?
I think they did, or Will brought them up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they did store, especially in that stone house. They had a dirt cellar or root cellar, whatever you call, and they would put their stuff in there that they planted, and they get the ice from the Aylesworth Creek and put it inside the cellar and keep it, you know, for the part of the summer months.
Well, how long did you have the bakery route?
Well, I had the bakery route. I was in high school. I went to Archibald High, and I was at the age of 14, and I was driving then, and I would come home from classes, and they'd have one truck ready for me, and I'd be on the road until about 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, and then I'd go in the shop about 10, and I'd work until 7.
In the bakery?
Yeah, and I'd work until 7 in the morning, wash up, and then get the school bus. It was only a second away from me, and get on to school, and then get on to the bakery route. I just was on the move all the time.
So how long did you drive, how long did you have the bakery route?
Let me see, it must have been 35 years, about that. But my brother got sick. He was the main baker, and my other brothers went off and got married, and that kind of ended it. But I was baking myself, and I had my wife help me at a young age, and then after a while I bought things from Richardson's Bakery in Carbondale.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And Barbara's Bakery.
Twin loaf.
Yeah, that was a popular bread. King Midas bread, yes.
So what was, you had mostly bread in that bakery? Bread and rolls?
No, a variety of everything.
Cakes and...
Cakes, pies, pastries, donuts.
So as I understand it, as you were driving around on your bread route for those 35 years,
Correct.
You gathered a lot of information about
That's very good. A lot by word of mouth, and I say several sons that lived up there. They told me some things, and just to kind of verify it when I would check with them, just for verification. They told me about how it was up there.
And you say that you take people up there on tours of the area?
Oh yeah, my first talk was up at the Carbondale Historical Society in 1989, 89 I think, yes. And that's really where I had the first talk. And then with that, A lot of people were interested, so I had different lawyers that were there and other professional people, and they liked what I had. And see, everyone heard about Hosey, but never too much about Edgerton, because Will Hosey was popular up there with his deliveries, and they kind of named it Hosey. And also the dam, which you were at.
Yeah.
Right?
But the correct name of that dam is the Edgerton Dam.
Yes.
That's...
But it belonged to the Scranton...
yeah, well,
Brookings-
Lord knows who it belongs to now.
No, yeah.
I bet it must belong to Louis.
It does.
Yeah. But you were telling me when we were up there that you could remember that on a Sunday or Sunday afternoon...
Unbelievable. A couple hundred people up there.
And
it was beautiful. The grass was really mowed. There was the brush was, the trees were not there. And I said friends and girlfriends, boyfriends used to walk hand in hand up through the road. And I have to tell you about one area up there too. They call it the Mile Rock. And that was the stone is still there. And it is now placed here at the Lackawanna River,
that carving is in
and the Borough of German made a little park of it, because I've been on German Borough Council for like 26 years and president of the council for maybe 2 or 3, 4-year terms, I don't remember. But I told them about it, and we were going to move that stone and try to bring it down here and put it by the river, and that is because of the park down here. It had, I don't know how many trees, 10 or 12 or something, and they were because of the First World War.
yeah.
Person that soldiers were killed.
Yeah.
But two trees died, but the reason rather, because the trees died, there were 2 guys that were missing. It was funny, how that happened. But it is on the stone is a doughboy. Is that what they had in it?
Yeah.
And on it he was standing at attention.
Somebody had carved it into the stone?
Carved in, yes. His name was Slawski. Possibly Victor. And then there's another one I showed you about the Indians that he put behind the St. Michael's Cemetery.
Indian hit.
And that's still visible, and that's visible yet.
It is, yes.
So what I had, a person from here in German, an artist, he come up and he kind of replica of it. And so they placed that after.
So they weren't able to bring that rock down?
Because they were afraid
Part of the
it
bedrock.
might have, if crack in half and ruin it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a doughboy standing at attention, like with the mountains behind the sun coming over, and holding
The rifle.
the rifle.
Is that rock still up there?
Yeah. No, that's the main thing. That's a half point between Edgerton and the Borough of German.
Oh, it's not at the dam.
No.
It's beyond where the Ellsworth Dam. It's only
No, I mean between. It's not at Hosey Dam. It's
no. It's between. It's right just behind the Ellsworth Park. No.
It's on the road going up.
And he chiseled in that on the bottom that what people didn't know about, but I knew about it. And it says, and some people taught me that wouldn't be the proper thing. I said, well, there's no use even having anything on the stone if you want to change it. You know what?
Yeah.
Chisel in.
yeah.
And it was, peace is dear, but mother is sorrowful. And they didn't understand it. So I says, well, it's a mother, and that person probably being in the service, come home and mother, of course, peace is dear, and she's sorrowful. The soldiers that had passed away, right?
Yeah.
How many, you say there were between about 300 families up there at Edgerton?
According to an article that I had from Rich Ritzak, that I kind of was inspired by that picture that was in the newspaper many years ago.
Of the village?
The village. And that kind of gave me more.
That article's in this packet.
Okay, I photographed that up there that day, and I've transcribed that. So I've got some information out of there. I've been trying to run that photograph down to see if I can find that photograph. I called the Historical Society, and they told me, boy, the guy said, it's strange. We have the file of Edgerton out here on the table because there's some retired nun at Marywood that's
Is that
researching it. Huh?
I didn't know that. Wow.
Well, that's really nice.
Now, he didn't tell me who it was, but he said it was a retired nun at Marywood who's researching Edgerton.
Well, if we were to call down there and find out.
Because we'd like to try to get as much information
right.
as possibly can.
That's why we're interested in this article in the paper, see if anyone had, because once the book comes out, we'll probably get people coming out of the woodwork saying, look, we had this, we had that.
Well, as I understand it from that article that was in, it must have been in the Carbondale News, because
I think so.
then there was a story with it by Rich Reachak,
Right.
and they also talk about Mike Zaroka.
Mike Zaroka, yes.
Mike was the photographer.
Right.
He took pictures.
Right.
Took pictures for the Carbondale News, and he also took pictures for me at the Times. And he one of the things in there says that Simpson and Watkins owned a mine up in the northwest up at Simpson.
Right.
And they decided that we need to name this town, so they flipped the coin, and it come up Simpson. So otherwise,
I didn't know that.
well, that's in that story. But Mike Zaroka told that story.
Oh, that's something.
Now I also did some checking, and there was a railroad branch. It was a standard gauge railroad branch that ran from Mayfield up to Edgerton. It was owned by the Jefferson Railroad Company.
All right, that might be one running over to Keystone.
Which was part of really controlled by the Erie Railroad.
Right.
And it also, there was a branch off of that line that went to the Erie, there was an Erie mine up there or something?
Yeah. I think there was a group of engineers, they call that Devil's Eyebrow.
Yeah, that's mentioned in that story.
Okay.
And the Clark vein
Right.
Was a 15 to 20 feet of solid coal.
Ran up there.
Ran from Devil's Eyebrow
Right.
up to Edgerton, up to the, and the outcropping was on the mountainside of it.
Right.
That's where they put the slope in.
Right.
And then down a little ways further, they built that five-story breaker. But apparently they took the coal it was a standard railroad. It wasn't narrow gauge low-key tracks. It was a standard railroad. They took it. They ran a line from Mayfield, someplace near the Powder Lake Cavalry.
Right. Exactly.
Up to Edgerton. And there was a spur that went off that went to the Erie.
That one probably was from the place I wanted to show you, Keystone.
Yeah.
Now, there are maps of this railroad line filed out in Cleveland in the archives of the Erie Railroad out there. I have home. I think I have the number of the map. Now, how you would go about getting that, I don't know. But so this thing, as I understand it from what you said, Joe, they apparently the engineers found this seam of coal, this Clark vein, which was one of the thickest veins that they found around here. And they traced it up to the mountainside.
Correct.
And the Edgerton Coal Company, a guy by the name of Andrew Clarkson was the superintendent. They sunk the slope. They did. It wasn't a shaft. It was a slope into the mountain, right? Well, then at that point was when the village started to grow, and that was what, 1883. So really, that 23 years is.
Yeah, because in December the 1st was it 1905 when they tore the breaker down.
We found that in the paper.
Documentation on that.
That's when they tore the breaker down?
Yeah.
December the 1st, 1905.
1905.
But prior to that, speaking to Mr. John Schuster Mayfield, he was one of my customers in the baking route and bakery route, and he told me there were several strikes prior to that. But I know there, and we do also have, there was 398 miners or workers in the mine. I have that on there, and each one, that was the year of 1892 that I have.
Yeah.
And with it, it said each miner averaged about 424.5 tons of coal per year. And that year of 1892, they worked 260 days around that. I have it on the things.
Where did you get that information
We
from,
got
Jim?
that information from the mining
The records.
records.
The books, yeah.
And I still have that.
Yeah.
So, in 1892, there were 398 miners at the college, or workers, not necessarily all miners, some laborers, some
Well,
mule
they worked at the
drivers.
college,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And so do you think that most of them lived in that?
They all. I would think so,
Most of them I would, yeah.
because there's many names that have Hemmelwright and everything there from the east side of German, and Crawford, he was a superintendent up there and mine foreman. If you can go around for a second. Let me see if I have something here.
I've asked the research man down at the Times to see if they have any old clippings. They may have that picture. Or the only other place is up at the Anthracite Museum,
Yeah, I'm a member up there.
that they might have. No, I copied it out of the newspaper, but how well it would reproduce again, I don't know,
Right,
because
yeah.
it's,
I have the, I don't know, I had a slip of paper on it, but I don't know what I did with it. But even with the census we have from 1900, with the several pages I had, I counted over 200.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And most of the people who came from Italy, they're
Oh, yeah.
mostly Italian.
Yeah, they were.
And
According
there
to the census.
also, there were some Slovak, let's
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
several other,
Well, the Schuster
and Irish,
were
and
Russians, right?
Irelands.
because my father worked with a man, when my dad worked at the power plant at Colebrook, there was a man there, Paul Schust,
Paul
and
Schuster.
he had a brother, Alex.
Alex lived out in the country.
Yeah, well, Paul lived out there near
Alex
Finch
is the
Hill.
person that sat with me here.
Oh,
He
yeah?
passed away, he's buried up at the St. Michael Cemetery too.
Yeah, well, Paul and my father worked together
Alex
for
and
years.
Andrew,
Yeah, I heard of Andrew.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. That's S-H-U-S-T.
yes.
Now, who was the guy that, was it their father?
The father's name is Sophonius.
How do you spell that?
S-O-P-H-R-I-N-I-U-S.
That's close.
And I have the tombstone, remember I told you the time he died, but
Yeah,
he
he's
died
buried
in
up there.
1934, I think.
I think, yeah, in the 30s.
And he was born in 1880. I have it on, but I
No,
don't have it with me, you know?
No.
I don't know if it's in...
Schust ran the hotel. And he was the man you said that used to walk through the snow to go up to the Russian church.
That was one of his sons,
Oh.
and his was John Schust. He lived in Mayfield. He used to tell me a lot of stories. I got a lot of information from him.
Yeah, he has a lot of notes, a real lot of notes.
Do you want me to get my notes or
No.
something?
I would
can
get,
give you more
I'd get
details.
swamped with.
Yeah, there's tons of pages of it.
There is.
And you say, Joe, that over the years you've gathered tons of pages of
Yes.
of handwritten notes that.
Right. It's to people actually born up there, you know, in that Schust residence.
Who you were telling me about Moran or Morn?
That was Professor Moran. He was a teacher.
What was his first name?
John.
John Moran, yes.
He was a distant cousin of mine.
Yeah.
And he lived down in German or
He lived in
Archibald?
Archibald Borough, and he'd walk up from right across from Archibald right over the mountain, right over to Edgerton.
Up Rock Street, number 5 Hill, right through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right up into Edgerton. And later on, he become superintendent of schools of the Archibald Borough School District.
How far a walk would that be, roughly?
Well, I would say about maybe 3 miles, would
At
it?
least one way. Yeah.
One way.
And he'd get up there early in the morning to get the fire going? And that school, you said they had sessions Monday through Saturday?
Yeah, half days on Saturday.
And the...
Two classes, like from 8 to noon and noon to 4, something like that. And then on Saturday from 8 to noon.
And he taught the whole,
There probably was another teacher, and I tried to find that, and I couldn't get the name.
And then
There's a lot of kids.
Then you say that, what was it, some Protestant ministers would go up there and have services on Sunday, and then the other people would walk, either go down to St. Thomas or...
St. Thomas, St. John's, or St. Michael's here in German, yeah.
Do you know who the last people were that lived there?
The last people who lived there. No, I couldn't tell you that.
Okay, but when the mines closed, it just sort of disappeared.
It just disappeared.
And you say
And all remained there was some of the homes, and they were dismantled, and they were brought into the community of German,
There's one in Mayfield, I know of.
Yeah, so there's still at least one home that was built from
the lumber,
that was salvaged
there's-
from up there.
I know probably 3 of them.
Yeah.
I've been in them. Boy, the timbers in them are big, you know, thick.
You've over the years, as you walk through there, you found a lot of artifacts and things, right?
Yeah. I have mule shoes. In fact, I have, you asked me the other day too, they had, I think, I have it written and I wanted to have that for it because of course you asked me and I don't know what I did with no, I think there was 28 mules and horses they had at that mule barn.
Oh, really? Wow.
And they had 2 mine locomotives. I also have that from the Bureau of
The steam, the narrow gauge steam locomotives.
Yeah.
So there was only one opening up there, right? To the mine?
Mine? Well, they call it Edgerton Drifts.
Yeah.
What we saw, we were in, I think there might have been 2.
Might have been, yeah.
I think there was 2. Because there was trackage going to that mine that we were at, and there's trackage going up
Around the
to
side,
the
yeah.
top of the mountain there. And there's a foundation up there. That's where most of the workings were had been taken, you know,
Yeah.
on top. And there was that big bull wheel,
Yeah.
and it ran all the coal into the pocket, into the breaker.
Pulling the cars up out of the mines.
Mines, right? And we left a chain up there. It's still in that mine, and I had this John Urim. He was a writer for the Truth magazine, and he did a walk with me up there, and he wrote a little story about a 2-page story about it, probably about 8 years ago, and that circulation went out to a lot of the Orthodox people throughout the country, and I received quite a few cards, and someone did send me, I have it somewhere, a card. It's similar to Edgerton.
Really?
All villages were kind of
Yeah, there were a lot of patch towns, they called them.
patch towns is the word, yes.
That down there at
Similar.
Eckley, where
Exactly, yeah. I've been there
that was
many
a
times.
patch town. There were a number of them around here too.
Yeah, well, Edgerton would be that way too, you know? And see, and what kind of got me interested too was them cullen banks at that time.
1921, according
Right.
to that story.
And they shipped that up to Binghamton.
By railroad?
I
I would
trucked
presume
there
so,
by
yeah.
railroad probably.
Yeah.
trucks might have dumped it into the railroad cars or whatever, but that steam shovel, I have an article over there that came from the Panama
You were
Canal.
saying it was used to dig the Panama Canal.
Yeah, and I do have the shovel, a picture of it, and the story from this person that had this article, and he said it just, after they finished there, that shovel stayed there, just rusted away, like
Oh, yeah?
others, yeah,
They didn't take it out of there again.
according to his story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you still take groups up there, do you?
Oh, yeah, I had one here supposed to have been scheduled 2 weeks ago. She got sick and she canceled. And then her daughter had another group to go this past Sunday. But I had another commitment, couldn't do it. But we make several a year, don't we, Dale?
Yeah, we advertised that one back in '07, November, and people came from as far as Pittston and up there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I did quite a few talks with Joe Breyer down in Elephant
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, at the historic, or at the
Genealogical.
Genealogical Society.
Society, and then I did it at another place down there in Elephant. Yeah, several places.
How long were you on the German Borough Council?
26 years. But of the 26 years, I think I might have, I probably 4 terms, each term, could be 8 years.
4 terms, there were 4-year terms, I presume.
But I had the 2 terms of, as president of the Borough Council. And there's so many people call me, ask me about going up there and taking up there, but I tell them it's not a good time to go like we did because you can't see much, you know. You have to go, and just before when the leaves fall, and then in spring before the leaves come out.
So you can see the foundations.
You
Yeah.
get a better view of the whole valley just looking from the railroad bed up there, you know.
Tell me something about the book that you guys are...
Well, we have the
The outline.
outline of it,
Yeah.
and of course, if you have new names, it's Father John Kowalczyk. He's my parish priest, and he's
He's a real go-getter.
he's a go-getter, and he's involved, and he wrote books on abortion and several other things. And Attorney John Crissa, and Dale Kecklock's my real right-hand man. With him, he gathered a lot of information for me from the Bureau of Mines and the census, right? Water.
Dale, you're K-E-K-L-O-C-K, right?
Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the line, my grandfather changed it. It used to be Kecklock, but he changed it to Kecklock. We're related to all the Kecklocks up here.
As I told you, there was when I was growing up in Carbondale, there was a waitress at the
I remember you saying
Caruana. It was still the Caruana. There were 2 Caruana restaurants in
I remember
Carbondale.
that.
Remember that? Pete Harbilis that run.
I heard about that.
And
He
John
was a
DeMorris.
priest, wasn't he?
Yeah, and John DeMorris ran the one up on Salem Avenue.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
They were both named the
one at
Caruana.
Salem Avenue, was there another?
There was one on Salem Avenue right next to Woolworths.
Right.
And when that's still there,
Yes.
then the one down on Main Street,
Never.
right across from the park, that was the Caruana, and they had, and that later changed to the Elite Restaurant.
Oh, all right.
And the guy that ran that was Pete Harbilis, his name was. He and John DeMorris that ran the other one were both Greeks. They both served Texas wieners.
Right. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
Well, I go back 80 years in Carbondale.
Carbondale, I always liked Carbondale. It was a nice, growing up, it was a nice community.
As I may have told you, I can remember my mother. Everybody went to town on Saturday night. The stores were open on Saturday night.
Nights.
And
It was beautiful.
you couldn't walk on Main Street. There were so many people on
Really?
Main
Wow.
Street on a Saturday.
I remember growing up and going to the Irving and Majestic Theater.
Yeah, the Irving was one of the most beautiful theaters around here.
You would believe it.
Absolutely beautiful.
It breaks my heart to see that they tore that down.
Then the Majestic, if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you had to go halfway down toward the screen and turn to the right. The bathrooms were in there.
Oh, I remember.
And upstairs in that building was the Casino Hall, which,
Oh, yeah.
remember that, where they used to, they played pro basketball there, and
That was a nice building.
they had a lot of boxing matches there. A guy by the name of Wildcat O'Connor from Forest City.
See?
Wow.
Well, no, maybe you could tell me, was that at Comerford Theater or something, the Irving?
The Irving was owned by the Farrells, but
How do you like that?
and they were associated with the Comerfords. Comerford did all their booking and everything for them. And then the same people, the father was L.A. Farrell, and there were two sons, Joe and Al. They built the Mid-Valley Drive-In,
Oh, my goodness.
the same people.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. We
Yeah,
used to go
I've
there.
been there too, yeah.
Yeah, they, right behind where Sugarman's was.
Right.
They built that.
Okay.
And that was before the Circle Drive-In was built. The only drive-in around here then there was one out at Newton Lake.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. That one up there. I think one time several kids or something were walking down the road and a car hit them.
Yeah, I think
It
so.
was
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Well, there
Must
were
have
a
been
bunch of
in
kids killed.
60s or something, or 70s. I
There
don't
was
know.
a store in Childs right across from the O&W Roundhouse, Caffrey's store, and a guy hit a bunch of kids standing there
Is that who it was?
one night.
I
and
read
killed
that,
them,
yeah.
Wow.
But I didn't come here to tell you guys
Well, that's
history.
nice to hear anyway, right?
It is, yeah.
We,
So what do you, this book, what do you, when do you plan to, do you have any dates set
Father
for?
John said it'd be by the end of the year.
he's now on vacation. He was to be here tonight, but I didn't know he's gone away for a week.
Oh, Father John.
Son, yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, but he's good with the good English,
Mhm.
clearing up, and he's well educated, and
We've been
he's
meeting
got a
every...
doctorate and everything, so he's a good speaker.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I used to run into him down at the Times. He'd come down there.
oh, I'll have to tell him.
He'd come down there wanting to get stuff in the paper. That's why the Russians got so much in the paper, because he's so active, you know.
He's very,
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
determined type.
Oh, yes, he is, I know.
Yeah.
He had me go up to St. Ticon's one time. I forget what it was. I went up there and took
I'll
some
have to
pictures.
tell him. He's going to call me tonight, and I'm going to tell him.
See, my sister got married up in the Russian church in German. She married Paul Saka.
Oh, I know Paul.
Yeah. So
I know he died, didn't he?
No. His brother Nicky died.
Oh, Nicky died.
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah.
I knew Paul. Sure I did.
Well, they live
yeah.
next to me at Cortez, and I was in the wedding.
Oh, Nicky?
No, Paul and my sister.
Oh,
Yeah.
Paul.
No, Nicky.
I mean, Paul.
Yeah, yeah,
Paul.
yeah.
I wonder if you remember.
Yeah.
He asked him about Joe the Baker.
I'll ask him. Yeah. His sisters,
Brother Nick on an accordion.
his sister Helen, and there's
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
Oh, that's news to me.
I was in the wedding up at St.
John's?
St. John's,
Right.
and then they had the reception at St. Michael's Hall.
Right here in Germany.
Yeah. And they stood there with the salt when you.
Yeah. It's the same way when I greet the bishop, I have salt,
Yeah.
salt of the earth or whatever.
Or, so you're Gail and Joe and Father John, and what's John Crissa?
He's an attorney.
Yeah, I know.
You know John?
Yeah, he was in with McDonough, Jimmy McDonough.
Mm-hmm. John is interested. He's been at my first talk in '89 yet, and he always liked to hear about Edgerton, and as many times, and his son Michael, they wanted to take a tour, which they will still want to. He wants to go with us.
Yes, he's somewhat of a historian. He has a lot of World War II artifacts and
Well,
stuff.
he's got a
Yeah.
basement.
Filled.
He's got a museum all World War.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
You'd have to see that. You can
Yeah.
write a book about that.
Well, let's see what we got in the envelope here.
everything that you had, that Joe had hanging up there, I took pictures of and printed them out.
I might have, probably 4 times. You did it?
Yep. But as I say, I got some pretty good pictures. This was the Carbondale Leader.
Yeah.
That was the, well, that was the first paper I ever wrote anything for.
Really, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, is that who you work for?
Well, I worked for them. Well, I didn't work for them.
What is your last name anyway?
Rogers. There was a, there was a,
Oh, I heard of it many times, yeah.
Ed Rogers.
Ed Rogers.
So they,
Oh, gee, let me shake your hand. Nice to have you in my home here.
they had a contest, a circulation contest, which my sister, we entered my sister in it, and then they asked me to write a column about Boy Scouts. Well, then the Carbondale Leader went out of business, and it was out of business for a couple of years, and 2 guys came in from Michigan, and they bought the paper, and they started it up. 1945, I was like a sophomore in high school, and they heard that I was interested in newspapers, and they sent me a letter, and I went to work there while I was in high school.
Oh.
Before that I was working in Gary's store. Remember Gary's store in Carbondale?
Yeah.
The guy Canaan and Belmont there?
Yeah.
Well, I worked there for a while.
On the corner there
Yeah,
with the...
yeah.
Yeah.
So they paid me 5 cents a column inch. 1 column, 1 inch, 5 cents I got paid.
Oh.
So I was the sports editor there.
What, you never took up broadcasting, you have a good voice for it.
I did at one time. I worked in the Tribune office in Carbondale with a guy by the name of Jimmy Beamish. And Jim Egan, remember Jim Egan?
Sure.
Who was the general manager of the Fellow Brewing Company?
Yeah.
Well, he used to stop in, so we decided that we'd start to do a radio program. So we went up to,
CDL.
no, CDL hadn't even started then.
Oh, really?
So they bought time on a station in Nanticoke, WHWL in
I
Nanticoke.
remember that station.
And we broadcast every night at 6 o'clock from the Fell Brewery.
So you were on the air.
And then when WCDL started, I was the first sportscaster that they had. And then again, remember Mike Mannion?
Hey, we have to write a story about you.
Remember Mike Mannion?
Mike, you live in Mayfield.
Yeah.
On the
Well,
corner.
he worked for the ILGWU.
Yes.
Well, Mike and I used to go and do basketball games, play-by-play basketball
right,
games
yeah.
for WCDL. But you couldn't hear them at night, and they got crowded out so much. So we would take a tape recorder that was almost as big as this table, and we'd tape record the games, and they'd play them Saturday morning. Friday night games we'd do, and they'd play them Saturday, broadcast them Saturday
There was
morning.
not much watts you had. How many
Well, they had
power watts?
Well,
power?
they were 250 watts at the time,
No.
and at night, everyone, you know how everything crowds in at night on the radio, on AM, so you couldn't hear you, maybe in downtown Carbondale.
Especially
you could.
AM, right.
So then I became the official scorer for the Carbondale Pioneer Blues.
Brother, you've been around, huh?
Well, I've been at the Times since 1953.
Is that right?
Did you know Marty Cummings
Marty Cummings.
up in Montail? He'd be in his 60s now. He was a pressman.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah, he's my first cousin. And there was another guy, Jack Frazier, but he might have been with the Tribune.
No,
Do you
I
know Jack?
don't know him. But
No.
so I've been around.
You sure have, boy.
That one, I should have zoomed in a little closer. With a glass you could read it, but
This is the one that I photographed, and I've transcribed most of this. So that one,
it's Rich Reachacks.
I didn't read all of Rich's.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll help you out. All those ones
Oh yeah,
Truth are in there.
this will be. Where's this? Oh, let's look. Ed Smith. I knew Ed Smith too. Did this? What are these?
That's the remainder of the stone house.
Oh, okay. That was the hotel, was it? Well, actually, wasn't a hotel. It was more of a bar or a tavern, right?
Kind of right, yeah.
They
It was not a
didn't rent
hotel.
rooms out there.
They call them hotels, you know?
Yeah.
Barman's is the word for it, right?
That's the little kid, I think, that fell in the
Oh, okay.
creek.
The roadhouses, they call them.
Yeah.
The really people on the tours just being there with the picture as we take them around, even to the mining spots and the breaker and
Yeah,
walking through the town, you really get a good...
you do. Yeah, well, I found that little jaw harp on the ground.
Yeah.
And that tour we did in '02, I filmed that. I borrowed a camera. The guy walking in front of me picked up an 1856 large cent. It was just laying on the ground.
I did find something that really, you had told me about it, that I found a piece on the internet where people had talked about how miners were paid.
Yeah.
Edgerton Coal Company, no, Temple Iron Company,
Temple Iron
which bought,
Right.
there's a long story which I don't want to get into in this story in the paper, but anyway, they paid generally in silver dollars.
Silver dollars.
Now, the Hudson Coal Company paid in cash, but, you know, they were bills.
I heard of a story too about the Mon McGuire's in reference to two miners or something coming, two trees, and I know where they were, and they robbed him and killed him and took his pay, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, how much money could they have? Did they return all the money back to the company store?
I've got my father's, I got a book that my mother kept. The first time they took Social Security out of my father's pay.
Really?
Took 36 cents out.
36 cents?
Wow.
Wow.
See, this was the time, so this picture may be down there someplace.
That's right. Yeah.
So the guy was gonna try to look it up for me. If we can find the original of this picture, we're gonna be really
See,
lucky.
I had this. Do you remember Paul Cerniak from Mayfield? He was a photographer.
Paul who? Cerny?
Cerniak.
He's mentioned in one of those articles, I forget
And
what name.
he's the one, he was a member of our church down here, and I had him come up, and he had the instruments and all that stuff, and we took a picture before and after from the exact spot, you know, as before and after, like shots, you know.
I knew the Tellups.
Oh yeah, you know Basil?
Steve.
Steve Tellup. Steve Tellup had the Maple
newspaper.
News.
And the printing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And their
I used to
their
deliver
brother-in-law Pete Minsky.
Treatment, yeah. I worked with the physically handicapped for 20 years under the NEIU, and of course Pete Minsky was the executive director.
When I worked I was still in high school, worked at the Carbondale News Leader, in the summertime, Pete Minsky would come up there and he'd be a linotype operator in the summertime because he was supervising principal of Scott Township.
Township.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But,
he had a lot to do with this consolidating
yeah, when they
schools.
yeah, and then he got a good job out of it.
Oh, he was
But,
executive director for many years.
But Pete was a linotype operator, and he had learned
I didn't know that.
to run the linotype at the Mayfield News at Tellups.
I used to deliver to Tellups.
Oh, yeah?
At a young age. I remember it was like he had a machine there and pouring lead or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And it seemed it was complicated to me at that time.
You know, you
How
talk
in the
about...
world did they ever get it together?
Oh, and you know, and that was really difficult to do at the time. And how many subscribers could they have? 500, 600? Because there was a paper in German that too.
Yeah, I have German press, and I have Mayfield News.
And there was a paper in
Archibald Citizen.
Citizen.
But you know, even in Carbondale, when Carbondale was 60 years ago, Carbondale was much stronger than it is now. The paper couldn't exist because the Scranton papers were just...
The Sundaf Republican is a paper I think that goes back to the 1820s. It's in the Cardinal Library up there in Micro.
Well, there were two papers, two factions of Republicans in Scranton that were fighting for each other. One was the Scrantons that owned the Lackawanna Scranton Iron and Steel, or Lackawanna Iron and Steel. The other one was William Connell, who owned the Connell Coal Company.
Okay.
McConnell Building?
And he built the Connell Building.
Ah.
They were bitter enemies. So the Scrantons owned the Scranton Republican, I believe it was. So Connell got mad and he started a paper. He started he started the Scranton Tribune.
Was that on the Adams Avenue one time?
Well, the Tribune was on North Washington Avenue,
North
right next to
Washington.
City Hall.
Right, I remember.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a long time.
So, well, then we bought them out. After
Yes.
the Republican and the Tribune merged, and then they became. For years, it was called the Scranton Republican, and then it became the Tribune, and then they bought the Scrantonian, which was owned by the Littles, which was located right across the street from the Times. So anyway, as long as local people owned the morning paper, the Linnets would not start a morning paper. But then when people from out of town came in and bought it, we started the morning Times.
Oh.
And it wasn't much later than that when they
bought the Tribune up.
They just closed the Tribune up. Boom. They put the paper out on Saturday on Sunday, the Scrantonian, and sent messages to everybody not to come to work, that they weren't going to publish
you
it.
like that?
Wow.
You just close the doors.
Yep.
Huh? What about that blue line or blue streak? Remember that?
The Tribune Blue Streak, that was
Come on at midnight or something?
No, it came on at 10 o'clock at night.
10 o'clock?
Because they used to send them to Carbondale on the bus. Remember, the buses ran till midnight.
Yeah.
And the principal reason for that was they had all the horse race results in it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that was the only way people, and all the bookies and everything, that's how they got the horse race
I
results.
think, question for you probably is like the Scranton Times and the newspapers, you think there will exist,
Oh, yeah, somehow, some way.
I mean, with the idea of computers and...
Well, it's been a rough time, I'll tell you that, because they put their news on the computer, and like when people used to go from here to Florida for the winter, they used to always buy a mail subscription,
Right.
so they would find out who died and what happened.
Right.
Well, now all they have to do is
Click on
go onto the
Cousin
computer.
lives in Dallas, Texas. He reads it every day.
My son is up in Bath, Maine,
Yeah.
and he
Reads every day.
He reads every day.
So you're Ed Rogers.
I'm Ed Rogers.
Oh, you son of a gun. It's nice to have you here, brother, I'll tell you that. I read articles, and Father John...
Oh, he know me, yeah.
Oh, we mackerel.
I tell you a funny story my father told me, and you maybe can tell me whether this is true. There was a theater in Mayfield,
Yeah,
and there was a theater in German.
Yep, O'Neill's owned that one.
They would only rent one. They'd rent one film.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have the previews and the newsreels
Right.
and stuff. So in the German, maybe in German, they would start with the feature, and in Mayfield they'd start with the newsreels.
Right.
So they had a guy on bicycles
Mike.
ride back and forth carrying the reels.
His
back
name
and-
was Mike Turpak.
Oh yeah, that's a true story, is it?
Yeah, gospel truth, yes. You know what? And I went to that movie, we used to call it The Bug House, Ernie's. And the one in Mayfield, I remember, it's torn down now, but
Well, that was by the river there someplace, wasn't it?
it's right where the, let me see, right on the corner of Penn Avenue and Poplar, right, Main Street, and like half a block down from the bank, going west. Yeah, I remember that. That was owned by the O'Neills, Tom O'Neill.
Oh yeah. But then my dad always told about them pedaling, going back and forth with the reels.
And what we would do, sometimes he'd be running right, they'd be banging the room, have the,
Oh, Tom, waiting for the film to come. Yeah.
I was part of that. They were good times, and I'd get a quarter, Dale, at that time, and I'd stop in Main Street, and I'd buy 5 cents worth of candy. I had some Greek guy that time. And then go to the movies, it was like a dime. And then there was Russell's ice cream.
Oh, 2 dips for a nickel.
Third one for 2 cents more, 7 cents.
Oh,
I used to suck on that ice cream all the way from there, come all the way up to Aylesworth, and have some left. And have maybe like 3 cents or 4 cents left.
That's how Spencer Russell, that's how he really hit into the ice cream business. Mulholland's was the only other ice cream in Carbondale.
That was quite big.
And, but you only got 1 dip for a nickel there.
Yeah.
And Spencer Russell started, they had the dairy up there on Belmont Street, Milk Dairy.
I had one of the bottles, and I gave it to
And he started selling ice cream 2 dips for a nickel. And that just about put Mulholland out of business for a while.
I have a picture of that too yet, of that Midtown here in luncheon, they had that Russell's ice cream.
Well, then he got quite a few stores. He had quite a few stores around. There was one on Main Street by
and then that died out too, huh?
oh, they went.
The building still is up there on
No, they're going to build a hotel there.
You're kidding.
Well, I think they're kidding too, but that's what they say. They say that this summer they'll start.
Tear it down?
No, they've got all that land cleared up there.
It's cleared?
Yeah.
It was in cinder block places.
Well, you know, where the Acme was,
Yeah.
and in the Irving, that whole area in there, that's where they're supposed to build a hotel and conference center. A hotel in Carbondale?
Yeah, and a garage or something? I don't...
A parking garage?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see that too much.
My father was, when he got laid off at Colebrook, he was the night clerk at the Hotel American in Carbondale.
Hotel America.
That was
Anthracite?
No, not the Anthracite, the American, up by the post office.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
I know where. And that's kind of not a nursing home, but some kind of
It was a nursing home, and then Dr. Kaufman.
Kaufman, yeah.
Then they built one over, they built a new
Wasn't he a
one.
mayor of Carbondale once?
He was the
too?
mayor for quite a while, yeah. After Billy Monahan.
Billy Monahan?
Remember Billy Monahan?
I remember names. I have a list of them, mayors. I was
I
always...
wish we knew what year this was. That you only have the clipping on this, you don't have the...
Yeah, that's all you had hanging up on your board there. I took a picture of it. The date was cut out.
It's page 26 and D.
Isn't it on that?
It was on your, but I didn't see the date on it. I think it was clipped off.
That's what really got me started off with looking at that.
Well, the Times may have this photograph,
I would bet, yeah.
if they can find it.
Because it's the Times paper, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is from the Times, no doubt about that.
Maybe 10, 20 years ago, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it'd have to be way...
Oh, it's a lot longer than
longer
that.
than that.
Long before, I've been there 53 years and it was before that. Where are we here? See, I photographed,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
then I was able to, let me get it back up.
This is part of the shovel there, isn't it?
See, there I photographed that
That's
thing.
nice. This
You know who that is?
is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Boy,
Yeah, you
that's
got some
a
good
respect.
pictures. Oh, good, definitely.
Oh, look at that, how nice, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. Boy, there's so much to talk about up there.
Yeah, there is.
There's the outlet from the dam.
We first started this project 4 or 5 months ago. We didn't know how many pages, if we'd find enough, but Father John was saying
Do
probably
you have
75 to 100
the outline?
pages. Yeah, I could turn the computer on if you want to
See
see the
there?
outline. Yeah, that's back, huh? Yeah, that's that old,
Oh,
bar.
the bar, yeah.
Yeah.
This is their yard down by the school.
The schoolhouse. 15 years. I had a big...
You want to see the outline of the book?
Yeah. What, Joe, what street did we say this was?
Oh, that's the one running to the breaker. That's the Edgerton Road.
Edgerton Road?
Yeah, well, Edgerton A, and then B and C, but Edgerton actually...
See there, people walking down it.
That was a nice road at that time, yeah.
There's the bottles.